Business as Unusual is a thought-provoking podcast that explores the innovative strategies, disruptive ideas, and unconventional practices driving successful leaders and companies in the ever-evolving world of modern business. Subscribe, comment, and share for weekly inspiration with our host, Aicila.
Welcome to Business as Unusual. In a world where business as usual often leaves people out, how do you cultivate a truly inclusive and values-infused culture? Today, I'm delighted to welcome Faith Clarke, founder and driving force behind Work Ecosystems for Humans. Clarke is an organizational culture and teamwork specialist committed to helping business leaders build spaces where people feel like they belong so they can deliver on their promises. Clarke brings a truly unique lens to this work, blending her background in computer engineering and doctoral research and teamwork with her personal experience as a Caribbean immigrant and a mother of neurodistinct humans. Her high-touch, systemic approach has helped clients improve operations, maximize productivity, and increase revenue. Faith, welcome to the show.
Hi, Aicila. I'm so glad you're having me here.
I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. And we're going to do something a little differently today, one might say unusual, and take on a challenge that Faith sees in her work and work through it a little bit so you can kind of get a sense of what some of this means, or I guess even better, what it looks like. We always have ideas about what things mean. So come in and join us for the ride here. The topic is the core of belonging and then how that goes into designing collaborative leadership. So do you want to kind of frame that?
Well, so the challenge, we'll come back to what the actual challenge is, but then I'm a word nerd, and so I can get to like, what do we mean when we say particular words? And I think especially in the US, this does lead to a lot of the challenges we experience at work. In our society, the culture is, I would say, a low context culture because we're all from somewhere else, lots of generations together, we make assumptions about what we all mean when we speak. And so part of designing work experiences where humans can thrive is about this. Okay, what do we mean? And how do we understand each other? So belonging is a subjective experience. Everybody wants it, but nobody can make sure the other feels it. And it's an experience, people call it an experience of home. It's an experience of safety, even though we know there is no perfect safety. It's an experience of my needs are owned not just by me, but by the community. So you have to belong with. You don't kind of necessarily feel a sense of belonging on your own, but when you belong with a particular group, that group owns your needs as part of their own. So communal need fulfillment and communal harm repair. So when needs aren't met, the community is committed to doing it. So people say to me that when they know they don't belong, if they have to advocate for their needs. And, you know, we encourage people to be self-advocates, and it's seen as such a strength. But the reality is that if I have to say to you, please, this is what I need, then it's an indication of my lack of belonging. So when we think about belonging and collaborative leadership, we're talking about the kind of leadership that's a collective and that's integrated, so multiple people sharing whatever it is that we're calling the work of leadership, and sharing it in a way that there isn't a particular person that you're going to point and blame, that you're not going to kind of say you are, but in fact, there is this co-creation of the work, co-creation of support, co-creation of need fulfillment for the group and for the organization, and commitment to harm repair.
So can you, I mean, no one can give you belonging, but to a certain extent, the system itself does reinforce that feeling of it. Is that
okay? So no one can make sure you belong. And, you know, part of what happens here is that when we become committed to an idea here, meaning in the US, and I'm an immigrant, and so it's interesting to kind of compare what happens in the US to what happens in other spaces. In the US, when people get committed to an idea, the perfectionism can get very high, and people want the right answer. Leaders want the exact right answer. So an idea like belonging, one of the questions leaders will ask me is, how do I make sure how do I make sure I'm doing the right thing? And so
Right.
I'm offering this as a disclaimer. It is a statement of humility to know that you can do your absolute best to set up a culture and an environment of belonging, but you cannot make another person feel like they.
Mm.
And so that cannot be your focus, to make another person feel like they belong. That's going to be an autonomous and individual experience. What you have to be 100% committed to is the environment that creates belonging. And then we'll see if, of course, if situations arise and a person feels like they don't belong and they're able to share that with you, then you can, as a leader, then you can figure out, oh, what do I need to modify in the environment and
Mm.
make sure that that's a thing. So when I think environment, I think soil, I think ecosystem, I think
Yeah.
what's in the space that's making belonging be a byproduct.
I think that's actually a really, I think, powerful distinction to bring forward, is the difference between trying to control a person or influence their specific internal world versus create and foster an opportunity for people. And then they have to choose it. And I think that also fosters that autonomy, that collaborativeness that you want when you're trying to create something that is more of that flat structure and collaborative leadership system. I see it with different entrepreneurs and smaller groups.
I think, but even, I think when we understand that environment or systems produce 80% of the change that we want, that only about 20%, the 80-20 rule does apply here, 20% of behavior change, etc., is tied to the individual. That 80% is the environment. And my favorite example of that is, let me pump out the oxygen out of this room and let's see if people behave. That there is
Yeah.
the environment holds so much weight that when leaders focus on environmental things, it is absolutely going to have much more of a return than when we are focused on any kind of individual effort, including trying to make a person do anything. And so and individuals don't choose to belong. Individuals experience belonging in certain kinds of environments. And so
Okay.
we can't even manipulate a person in
Mm.
belonging, right? It is a subjective experience that a person will have. It's like I put my hand too close to the stove and I pull my hand back. And so it's what kinds of environments will facilitate that, and then trust that that will be the
Yeah.
for a particular person. What we have not been doing is having environments where people's care is priority, number one, and two, owned by the community, not just the leader or the leadership or HR or something. And an environment where communal care isn't the priority, then you won't feel like you belong, because what will happen is that you're beside so and so who doesn't care about your care, and that person throws off your experience of belonging.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like the things that I've seen with systems is that people getting too fixated also in trying to create a specific outcome instead of create a specific environment, and then that leans to that outcome, right, but doesn't necessarily try to force it. And then with the leadership piece, I feel like there can be a step skipped, especially with, frankly, people that are innovating and creating things. They don't always recognize that there's a little bit of scaffolding or bridging that people might need. I work with a lot of folks that are very much, they're going to lead the pack. They're going to go try things. They're not afraid to fail. They're not afraid to get it wrong. They don't love it. Let's be clear, right? They're out there and they sort of assume everybody wants to be doing that. And it's just not the case. A lot of people are very happy to have a clear outline of this is the way. But how do you help people to see what needs to happen to foster that environment?
The environment of belonging or communal leadership.
I mean, I was thinking leadership, but either one.
So one of the things that I've seen with leaders, even and especially leaders who are the run out in front of the pack, and lots of the leaders I work with are women, is invisible labor and burnout.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I have vision. And not only that, but I'm used to getting things done, and I do get things done, and I invite people along to the journey with me. But I am so much in the charge ahead that I accept work that I probably shouldn't have accepted. And let's be clear that, invisible labor is also a systemic issue and
Right.
is tied to our marginalized identities. And so for every marginalized identity you have, there is labor associated with that identity in navigating your work and your home and everything else. And so a lot of my clients who are women in leadership, especially in social impact spaces, have already taken on the work of most of the emotional labor and stuff like that in the space.
Right.
So those people can feel like Atlas holding up the world, as I am those people, and I have also experienced that. So communal leadership is leadership that says it's not just yours to bear. It's whatever this impact is, whatever this work is that we're here to do. So I tell leaders that you want to invite people into your vision and into your mission, into the work that you're doing. You're not just hiring whoever, you're inviting people to sign on for this work to change the world, whatever that work is. And then your leadership team, even if they have different positions from you, you need to invite people into this network of holding the work together. Because otherwise, what we have is a person holding all of the visible and invisible labor, and a person then being vulnerable to the blame and all this other stuff that's associated with that. And I feel like fundamentally, a person that doesn't belong. And it's an unfortunate and sad reality that leadership comes with a ton of power and also comes with a lot of not belonging, because the leaders is not,
Yeah.
we allow leaders, especially leaders with multiply marginalized identities, we allow them to overwork, overcompensate, fill in all the cracks and so on, and then blame them for the work that's not done. And yes,
Yeah.
they do have a ton of power, but I think that power is best done as power with. And yes, the leader has a ton of responsibility for creating power with, but in systems where power with versus power over, power with isn't sexy. Power
Yeah.
with, right? So it's very difficult to go against the grain, create power with, but you do power over and you're alone holding this work that's not meant for you to hold alone, and then you get blamed for it. So it's just not effective. Though it looks, it's what's been modeled in
It looks it
traditional workspaces.
it looks efficient from the outside. It gives the impression of that. But I agreed, like, there's very few places where I've seen it as a better solution. It's just simply the understood solution. I also feel like the folks that you're talking about, those marginalized and oppressed and intersectional identities, often blame themselves to start. They usually have really unrealistically high expectations and feel like that if they're not thriving or making everything work in this power over model, that is something about them, instead of understanding the model itself is a big part of the issue.
That understanding, whether it's they blame themselves or hold themselves to certain kinds of expectations, are part of the systemic injustice.
Yeah.
So you have not gotten to this point of leadership without taking excessive responsibility for things that
Right.
are not yours to do, and doing excessive labor to navigate barriers that other people haven't navigated. And so the very nature of systemic injustice is to set up structure so that it's easy to blame people who are lower in value in the system. And so the
Mhm.
work
Yeah.
against that, that's the beauty of collaboration, because when you build a collaborative leadership entity, what you're saying is it's not you, it's us.
Yep.
And we know, synergy, it's proven in science and it shows up with people that 1+1 is never 2 where people is concerned. 1+1 becomes 10. And when it is that we can get people, humans, in sync with each other, the science says that we interthink, like we actually can form a collective cognitive like understanding when we're working together that synergizes in ways that people in different roles working together just don't have. We see it in our team sports all the time. It looks like magic. It looks like the surprise play, but it really is people kind of being in sync with each other, team cognition and team cohesion working together. So when we're able to build that, we have the protection of the squad, and we have the support and the care and the need fulfillment built into that. And therefore, people's differences are not things that stick out and are judged, but they're integrated in the whole.
My experience of the places where I've been able to experience that either as a participant or a co-creator in it is it also reduces a lot of like wasted energy and effort and emotion because when something happens, there's not sort of the hot potato blame game. It's, oh, okay, we have to deal with this. And then afterwards there might be a review of like, how did this not get thought of? Oh, okay, let's adjust our systems. But even that's not a like, how did this not get thought of? Someone did something wrong. It's how did we as a group not realize we'd want to know this thing or prevent or plan for this thing? And so there's an ease of communication and ease of addressing things when they don't go the way you like, and ease of finding a system that is more effective. So there's this front end labor of learning how to do this thing that is not typical. The long-term impact, in my experience, is much reduced effort and much better results.
I mean, it's much more sustainable, but of course, there is a steep learning curve for anything we don't know. Then there's a steep learning curve, especially if your business your business is going. Like it's one thing to learn this and then implement it with a business from scratch, but if your business
Right.
is already in process, then you're basically changing the tires of the bus while it's running. But it is what it is. This is just part of how we need to navigate to figure out how to improve a system we've inherited that was built on exploitation. So,
Yeah.
okay, fine, this is where we are. And what do we need to do to kind of move that forward? But you're right, it is less emotionally taxing when we've become competent in it.
Yeah. It has a lot of benefits. What does success look like for you in a general sense, not just around this topic?
I don't kind of have a success as an idea that I work towards. I
Mm-hmm.
work towards being my most authentic self and
Mm.
version of that self in the moments that I'm in. And that kind of means keeping clear on what I want and kind of holding that alongside all of what's going on in my real life. So what are my constraints and opportunities, and holding all of that alongside how does this complex entity who's truly human interact with the world. So I feel like I guess we could say successful. I feel happy. I feel
Yeah.
effective when I am saying yes to me and saying yes to community at the same time, and I'm able to hold that yes. And I do believe that there's a um this polarity that's common, that is super harmful, that we feel like a yes here means a no here. And I think that we can build the capacity to be saying yes, I can claim myself and claim you at the same time. And it takes some effort to build that bridge that allows me to hold on to myself and hold on to you, but I feel effective when I'm able to be doing that.
Yeah. I win when you win is kind of a general feeling for me. And I feel like there's a lot of people that feel that way and they don't necessarily get a lot of feedback that that's great. you can be differently successful and still be very committed to that duality of interaction and thoughtfulness.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
What advice would I give my 18-year-old self? I think she did a great job. So I don't even know what I would say to her about difference, except to continue to trust yourself. My 18-year-old self decided to build community a particular way, to pursue that community while being in college, to love people in specific ways that felt different from what I'd seen happening around me. And I think I would encourage my 18-year-old self to trust yourself, because those skills are even more important than whether we're able to code in C++, which is what I was studying. Or who invaded who, when, and where, the mandatory history class. Like, it really was about knowing and understanding people and helping people build community. And I'm people. How do I give and receive into community? And so I think I was already getting glimmers of that. And I would tell myself to listen to that and not think it's just a thing on the side, but really listen.
Give it some center stage effort. Yeah.
Mhm.
Is there anything that you're particularly excited about right now in your business? Any offerings or things you've discovered or work you're doing?
Well, I'm pretty excited about so my work is in restorative culture design. And so I help nonprofits design, like not get into the retrofit crazy that so many large organizations are in as they're trying to fix this. It's just expensive to fix culture. But I do feel, we talked about this a little bit before, that culture beats strategy every day of the week. And people say, hey, Faith, can you help me with some strategic planning? And I'm like, I can, but strategy isn't going to get you where you want to go. And if we can build the habits and the behaviors that sustain the culture you want, then your strategy can sit on that and really go where you want. And so it's really, I'm enjoying being with people who are really committed to community change and social impact, because those people they already can see, oh, we want to honor people. And so then it's easy for me to say, hey, your people and your culture needs to honor the people who are here. And your medicine that you're offering out in community to do this and that and the other work needs to be evident inside. And so that's been a real, energizing to my heart. And I think in addition, as I lean into the connection between invisible labor and not belonging, it's been gratifying to validate some of the leaders and say, hey, listen, this thing you're doing, this impossible task that you're doing, that you're trying to keep the organization solvent and all this thing, which is important, you have to release it. Other people have to join you in this. And too many leaders are trying to hold it up while they figure out what to do. And there is a grieving process associated with not holding it all up. You have to let it go, and some things do crash. But then there is an opportunity to reform. There's the chaos cycle as like a graph. So there's an opportunity to reform with the wisdom that you know. But if we keep trying to sustain the impossible situation we're in, it doesn't work. And so it's a gift to kind of walk alongside people during that. And especially if I'm engaged with an organization for a couple of years, then to kind of help them move through the labor pains, the birthing of the new baby, and the nourishing of this new and a culture that they're the kind of creating to sustain this new path in the world that they're doing.
Yeah.
In terms of offers right now, I'm offering culture design audits. It's like a short kind of, 6 to 8 weeks. We get together and we do a quick kind of understanding so you can get the sense of the low-hanging fruit. Culture design, I found, is at least a 2-year engagement, but the audit will help you to see what are 1 or 2 places where if I put some effort, you can kind of see like a ripple effect. You can kind of see some shift somewhere versus trying to do an overall in the whole situation. So if that's something people are interested in, they definitely can reach out to me and we could talk about that.
That sounds really fascinating. Please, all of you, reach out. And then for folks that are listening, how do they learn more, follow you, get in touch?
I'm in the socials as Faith Clarke, Faith Clarke or Faith A. Clarke, but my website is faithclarke.com. And one of my auditing tools is at restorativeworkculture.com. And we'll make those available in the show notes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
It was lovely to be here. Thanks for this great conversation.
Join me and guest Autumn Wade next week. She'll share how she uses TTRPG-inspired coaching tools to help clients break through feeling stuck by embracing their authentic values and challenging unhelpful inner narratives. Thank you for tuning in to Business as Unusual. Remember, in this ever-evolving world of modern business, it's not about fitting in, it's about standing out. See you next time. Stay curious, stay innovative, and always keep it unusual. I hope you enjoy the show. I love making it. If you did enjoy it, consider hopping over to the review portion of the platform you listen on and letting other people know about it. Or share the episode or the entire show with a friend or subscribe to the show. definitely reach out, get on my newsletter, follow me on social media, and let me know what you like, what you don't like, and what you'd like to see in the future. While we love our guests, appearance on the Business as Unusual podcast or any Bicurean consulting production is for information purposes only and is not to be considered an endorsement of their business practices, or character. Please properly vet anyone you find through this podcast and generally before you do any business with them. Thank you for listening.